We unearthed a Jeffrey Epstein video deposition from a number of years ago, where when he was asked if Donald Trump was involved with young girls, he took the Fifth Amendment. We cover that and all the new updated Epstein scandal that's swirling around and threatening to tank the Trump administration on Legal AF. And here's a clip. Well, let's jump into Epstein. Yeah. And why it matters. An article is just running right now in the New York Times, how the Democrats are eating the Republicans' lunch when it comes to the Epstein pedophile scandal that's enveloped the Trump administration, mainly because, well, people just generally don't like people in positions of power who are directly connected to a pedophile being seen to be covering it up. And now you got a couple of new things that came out, right, Karen? We've got the Wall Street Journal, speaking of FU to Donald Trump, 3 days after the lawsuit for $10 billion gets filed against them in Miami because they ran an article, a truthful article about a leather-bound scrapbook containing a handmade arts and crafts birthday card by Donald Trump that was reviewed by the feds, the FBI, the Department of Justice, as part of the evidence package for the Ghislaine Maxwell case or the Epstein case, and they reported on it because it mentioned not only the kind of an obscene cartoon, but it mentioned the secret life of Jeffrey Epstein and him being an enigma with a lot of secrets, which is not a great place to be when you're Donald Trump saying, I didn't know he was a pedophile. And now we've got the new Wall Street Journal article out today talking about the truckload of documents that were reviewed in March and what Pam Bondi told Donald Trump in May about his name being in it. Why don't you take it over from there? By the way, I got a dinner bet with Michael Cohen riding on this. He was on the show with me the other day. He said, Popok, you're wrong. The Wall Street Journal is going to bend. They're going to write a check. I said, I don't see that happening. No, they miscalculated. I said, I'll make you a dinner bet. Let me see what you think. Go ahead.
Well, what's astounding is that the Wall Street Journal published this at all because of who owns the Wall Street Journal, right? It's Rupert Murdoch. So it's astounding that he would greenlight these series of investigative reportings and these articles, and that it's coming and appearing there is eye-opening in and of itself. Number one. And number two, it looks like the articles are just coming out. More information. And it's all some of the other stuff we're talking about later today, like Tulsi Gabbard saying Obama, I don't even know what she's accusing him of, but I know what she's accusing him of, but I can't even put it into words because it's so preposterous that he did anything wrong and that he is treasonous to this country. But it's all an attempt to deflect away from this Epstein nightmare because it has become, by all accounts, this has derailed the White House. So much so, right, Popok, that Congress, an entire branch of government, shut down early just so that they can stop this train wreck from happening because subpoenas are getting issued, hearings are being called, and literally Mike Johnson shut things down just so that they can go home early for recess and not have to deal with this because it is spiraling out of control. No matter how hard the White House and Trump and Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard and all the other people out there who are willing to do Trump's bidding for him, that are going out and trying to put these other stories out there, and people aren't buying it. They're just not buying it because when it comes to things like pedophiles and sex trafficking of young children, which is essentially what was happening here, that's a bipartisan issue. That's not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. That's something that the American people can get behind. And so everybody is demanding to know what is happening there. And this sort of throwing ice into, it's like ice in winter. This, we already released certain things, or we're going to try to get the grand jury minutes released. That's like a red herring and let me explain something about grand jury minutes and grand jury testimony. So what the grand jury is in a criminal case is it's a body of 23, approximately 23 people. It's between 12 and 23 people, and they sit and they listen to evidence. And it's called a prima facie case. It's not a trial. There's no cross-examination. There's no judge there. It's literally a prosecutor and a witness where they present evidence, and it's just enough evidence. It's just bare bones, enough evidence to charge someone with a crime and to get an indictment. That's what a grand jury is. So a witness can testify, and they raise their right hand and they swear to tell the truth, and they give testimony. Now, what's interesting in federal court and federal grand juries, which is different than many states, including New York, is hearsay is allowed. So, for example, in New York grand juries, that testimony is actually, if this was a grand jury presentation in state court in New York, this would be a chock full of rich information in that grand jury testimony, because in order to get an indictment, they have to have live witnesses. Every single witness who is accusing someone, all the victims, the investigation, every person who has information to give has to give it directly. Hearsay is not allowed. In federal court, it's very, very different. It's all hearsay. And so typically what they do in federal court is they will call some FBI agent or Homeland Security agent or whoever's leading the investigation to testify in the grand jury. And it's usually someone who doesn't have anything to do with the case. They just read the file. And they read the file essentially into the grand jury. And they do it that way because since this person has nothing to do with the case, they're never going to be called to the stand to testify, to be cross-examined. So if they got something wrong at the regular trial, when they're going to be cross-examined, that person's never going to be cross-examined at all. And grand jury testimony doesn't usually see the light of day if you're a defense attorney or anybody else. It's secret. It's secret for a reason. It's statutorily secret by law. So even if these grand jury minutes get released, as I said, it's ice in winter. It's going to show us nothing. It's not going to be any list. It's not going to be anything else. But let's talk for a minute about what this truckload is that you're talking about, because grand jury minutes is secret and because they are sealed, there's litigation going on in both Florida and in New York to try to unseal these minutes. And whether or not a judge is going to find that there are unusual enough circumstances, because normally they stay sealed, but there's this tiny sliver of a time when something is of great historical import. You know, like for example, if someone had prosecuted someone for the Kennedy assassination and there was grand jury minutes, that has great historical import. You can imagine unsealing that for historical purposes. Current political interest is not listed in the statute, in the unsealing statute, nor is it in any case law saying that is a reason to unseal the minutes. But let's see, who knows if they'll unseal the minutes or not, if the federal judge will ultimately decide to do that. But the fact that they are asking that they be released and somehow dangling that as a carrot, as a red herring, as sort of a, here you go, American public, we're going to try to get these grand jury minutes released. And if the judge doesn't do it, it's not on us. We tried. Don't fall for that. Okay. That is absolutely a complete red herring, or just something that you don't want to fall for, because they are not going to be substantive. But there are tons of records. In fact, a truckload, as Pam Bondi said, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of records. There are terabytes worth of records. That's how many records are going to be in a case like this. And how do I know? Because I'm a criminal defense attorney. I am on the receiving end of discovery in federal cases. I know what comes when they give you discovery or give you the files, right? And it's terabytes worth of data, okay? For example, you know what they could release that they don't have to get permission for, that they don't have to get a judge to unseal? All of the FBI, they're called 302s, which are every time an FBI agent interviews somebody or does an investigatory step on the case, or goes and issues a subpoena or gets surveillance video or talks to people or whatever they do on a case, they have to do a 302, which is like a piece of paper, essentially a report on that activity. There must be thousands of 302s when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, because That was a huge case with a lot of information and a huge investigation spanning. It was not like a crime that happened, a robbery in an alley that happened in 20 seconds, and that's the whole crime and that's the whole investigation. This is years and years and years of criminal activity, of grooming young children, of bringing them into Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, of sexually assaulting them, and in multiple locations in different countries all over the place, all over the United States, airplane records, search warrant records, medical records, all kinds of things that they have in their file, right, for all the victims, et cetera. Any local law enforcement investigative records, if local law enforcement ever was involved in some of these investigations, cell phone records. I'm sure they have all kinds of cell site data and cell phone records, flight records, other witnesses that would corroborate what happened, right? Housekeepers or other individuals who might have seen something, security guards, et cetera. And so there is a lot of records that they could release if they wanted to be transparent. And instead, what they're doing, and we know this is what they're doing and why they're doing it, is they're shielding it, they're hiding it. Because as the Wall Street Journal reported today, Pam Bondi told Trump that his name is all over those files. So instead, they're deflecting, they are meeting in secret, not really in secret, but they're meeting behind the scenes with Ghislaine Maxwell, because they're going to have some kind of deal cut with her to either clemency, where they reduce her sentence, or pardon altogether, so that she'll come clean and say something or not say something. And look, someone once said to me, be careful, because a drowning man will say anything to save his life. And that's exactly where she is. She is a woman in her 60s. She is in prison. She's got the rest of her life that she's going to spend in prison unless she says the right thing. And there's only one way out and a one-way ticket out. And that's if she says that Donald Trump wasn't involved, it was only Democrats, or whatever else she's going to say. But whatever she says, you're going to hear this is a carefully crafted, choreographed exercise that's going on right now.
Welcome back. Every week, twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That is Legal AF, the podcast. It's on the Midas Touch Network, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then on all audio podcast platforms. We need your help to continue to support that particular podcast and throw it some love and blow it some kisses. Download and listen to the audio podcast. Leave 5-star reviews and comments there. And of course, watch us and send it off to friends and family on our YouTube version. And then, of course, we've got Legal AF, the YouTube channel, 12 new videos a day at the intersection of law and politics. I'm Michael Popok. So until my next report, this is me coming at you. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.